Jarvis butts, you are the monster in this whole picture. I have to speak on Naziyah Harris and the community who failed her. From what I have heard over the last 4 days and 5 days total is that several people failed her. I don't know where her mother is. I don't know anything other than that she was forced to live in a home where she was not protected or given adequate attention and love.
A recent court case has shed light on systemic issues affecting vulnerable children in our communities. A man was convicted of multiple charges related to the abuse of a minor. In court, the presiding judge emphasized the need for society to protect at-risk youth, particularly young girls, from falling through the cracks.
It says that the cause of death remains unknown, which, Judge, obviously Ms. Quick is getting to one of the main issues in this case and one of the big questions in this case that I anticipate is going to be a defense argument.
We all know that that's one of the big issues here in this case. So I will admit it with your objection noted.
This is Naziyah Harris, and in 2024, which is the year she went missing, she was living with her grandmother, Annette Harris, her aunt, Shannon Harris, and her aunt Shannon's 5 children. Naziyah's biological mother was not in her life.
Maternal grandmother, right?
Correct.
You're also her adopted parent, right?
Correct.
And you said you adopted her in 2016?
Yeah.
Is her birth mother still around?
She is.
Okay. Does she have a relationship with her?
No.
She doesn't have any type of relationship, no contact with her that you know of?
Well, let me say this. I don't deal with my daughter, so she really didn't have no contact with Naziyah like that. She only came around now and then.
Now, the father of Aunt Shannon's 5 children is this man, 41-year-old Jarvis Ramon Butts.
Do you have any children?
Yes.
How many kids do you have?
5.
And do all your kids have the same dad?
Yes.
Who's their dad?
Jarvis Butts.
He works as a mechanic and he owns an auto body shop with this man whose name is Cordell Wright, aka King. And this body shop that the two own and work at is not too far from where Naziyah lives with her grandmother. Police say that on January 9, 2023, Naziyah gets off her school bus, but instead of heading home to her grandmother's house, she instead heads toward Jarvis's shop.
It is January 9, 2024, 2:54 p.m.
On our way back from AutoZone, I believe we forgot something. So we ended up turning back around, going back to AutoZone, grabbed whatever we forgot, came back. And on our way back, we was coming down Harbor. Jarvis said, "I see my niece right there, she walking." We pulled into Angel's liquor store. I still didn't see her. He pointed across my face, said she right there. She was coming across the street at that time. She got in the truck with us. She spoke, "Hi King, hi Jay." And we proceeded back to the shop. We started working on the Jaguar, putting the parts back on.
Now, multiple people testify about seeing a little girl with Jarvis on January 9th, the day she went missing, including Jarvis's own sister, who brought her car up to the shop that day.
What's the reason that you went and talked to Detroit police?
I had reason to believe that I saw Naziyah the day she went missing.
From the very beginning, where is it that you think you saw Naziyah?
At the shop on Harbor Encounters.
Okay, and whose shop is that?
My brother Jarvis Butts and his partner.
What's the reason you were at your brother's shop that day?
Something was wrong with the car that I was driving, and I just needed him to check it out to make sure it was safe for me to drive.
Okay. Do you recall about what time did you go to Jarvis's shop that day?
About 4 p.m., give or take a few minutes. So I was sitting outside of the shop in my car because they were working on another car on the inside. As I sat there for the time that I was there, I kept seeing a little girl get in and out of his truck, going to the gas station and going back to his car.
Do you get a look at this little girl that you see getting in and out of his car?
I saw her as she was walking. I never saw her face. I just remember her having on a colorful jacket.
Did you know who this little girl was at the time?
No.
And did you ever ask Jarvis who the little girl was?
Yes.
And what did he tell you?
He told me, and I can't remember if it was this exact word, or he said it's my partner's niece, or he said it was King's niece.
Okay.
But
You knew who he was referring to?
Yes.
Okay. Did you think anything of it at the time?
No.
Okay. Okay, and what is it that made you think something different?
I received phone call, or a video call from one of his kids' mom. She told me about some things that happened on Valentine's Day, and then she sent me a video of a podcast about my brother.
So, based on those, do you go and talk to someone else?
Yes.
Okay. Who do you go and talk to?
His partner, King.
Okay.
After I mentioned to him that I had only saw my nieces and one particular little girl, he then told me that that was Naziyah that I saw that day, and I was there.
What is it that you did after speaking with King that day?
I called Shannon Harris and I asked her for Sergeant Jones' phone number.
Okay. And,
as we did our workup and we're looking at different locations that Mr. Butts had been to, as we start breaking down the phone mapping a little bit more on Mr. Butts' phone, it kind of led us to 7 Mile and Berg. So 7 Mile and Berg, there is, it used to be a golf course, which is now shut down. And then on the other side of Berg, there's a parking lot where it has like a vacant building, which used to be the clubhouse for the golf club. And then right behind that parking lot is the Rouge River. We searched the complete river from 8 Mile all the way down past 96 on foot with cadaver dogs in boats in the water.
what evidence did you find?
We collected a pink jumpsuit, bodysuit style, and then a black hoodie that had a pair of white headphones in one of the pockets, some gloves, a towel, and a pair of red, black, and white gym shoes. That is one of the black, red, and white gym shoes that we collected from the wooded area. That is the black jacket that was collected. It is towards the front of the photograph, kind of behind that tree branch. So yes, that is the paper and the pair of headphones that was recovered from that pocket. So that's going to be the hood of that hooded jacket. We noted that there are several holes in the jacket of unknown origin. That is the pink jumpsuit that we recovered.
So how close was the Rouge River, I guess, to the area that you were searching?
So there was a large parking lot just off of the west side of Berg, and then there was an embankment leading down to the river. I would say less than 500 feet.
The prosecutors presented everything that I showed you, and more, to the judge, and not only did she determine that this case should absolutely go to trial, she also had some words for all of the adults that were in Naziyah's life.
Speak on Naziyah Harris and the community who failed her. From what I have heard over the last 4 days and 5 days total, is that several people failed her. I don't know where her mother is. I don't know anything other than that she was forced to live in a home where she was not protected or given adequate attention and love. I don't know where her father is. I don't have any mention of him in her life, no presence. To Cordell, aka King, and all the men who saw Jarvis Butts hanging out and always around these young girls, including Naziyah, and his 9-year-old daughter going up to the shop to clean up the shop. There's no mention of CPS, but I wonder what their involvement was over the years, because this was not just a one-year thing. There are text messages at least from 2022. To her adoptive grandmother, Annette Harris, whose testimony, in my opinion, was very questionable. I understand why the people put her on the stand to establish Naziyah's residence and the houses on Bedford and the regular routine, to establish also that Naziyah was not a runaway child, that she was not a bad kid. But to always send those girls up there to clean up the shop raises questions. And how were there 2 women in that house who have birthed children themselves who did not notice that Naziyah was pregnant, and I believe she was, and not having her period anymore? And what stood out the most was when Annette Harris stood on the stand, and she learned around 6 p.m. that Naziyah did not come home from school, and said she looked around for her and decided to wait until the next morning to call the police. Without a tear, without emotion, or any expression of being devastated. And to her Aunt Shannon, who also showed no emotion, expression of being devastated from Naziyah going missing. She stated that she had friends help look for Naziyah, but was directed to just wait until the morning to call the police. A grown woman who likely suspected something strange going on didn't feel the need to call the police either. They were both able to go to sleep at night without hearing from Naziyah or having any indication that she was coming home that night. As far as the people establishing probable cause, I will focus on count 1 as it's been stated that there is no contention with counts 2 and 3. In count 3, I will amend based off of the motion and testimony I heard that Naziyah was 12 and not 13 at the time that Jarvis Butts had sexual intercourse with her. The prosecution is correct. You do not have to have a body to establish first-degree premeditated murder. It would have been a much shorter exam had her body been found, but this is where we are. In the last 365 days, no text messages. We all heard today and yesterday that she was very active and frequently texting. No social media for a year. We heard through testimony that she was also active on social media. No phone calls, which she was also able to do according to testimony. No physical sighting of her by anyone. She never came back to school. No one has seen her. Medical records dated from July 2014 to October 2023 indicate that she had no life-threatening medical issues that would lead to a natural cause of death. While this is still probable cause, the evidence all points to Jarvis Butts. His locations, him being seen with her last, the abortion searches, the abrupt silence between the two of them in text messages, and the constant lies he told throughout the entire investigation. We may never know what happened, but from what I heard today and over the last 4 or 5 days, it appears he intended to perform what he thought was a do-it-yourself abortion on Naziyah. They went south, and instead of seeking medical attention for her, he intentionally killed her and tried his best to cover it up. As much as I want her to be alive today, there is at least probable cause to show and believe that she is dead and she was murdered by Jarvis Butts. Mr. Butts, stand up. You've been sitting over there for 4 days with your head down, sitting between and behind your attorney with your mask on and taking vigorous notes. I want you to pay attention and listen to everything I have to say. I have been trying to figure out for the last 5 days, you. At one point I thought you were cognitively impaired in the beginning of this exam. And then maybe you had the brain of a 10-year-old and that's why you were doing such things. But as I heard more and more testimony, you're just a true definition of a pedophile. Watching you laugh and brag about all the women you have with different women and the children and the girlfriends, and making babies to groom them, and having them in your presence, cleaning up your shop, and the little girls around you, has landed you here today. You groomed Naziyah. You played mind games with her. We all heard that. You controlled her emotionally. She was exposed to so much at such a young age. The text messages between you two were disgusting to hear. And to think that she had you saved in her phone and begged for life. Naziyah deserves so much more. And while I mentioned other people that failed her, Jarvis Butts, you are the monster in this whole picture. She did deserve love from her parents and everyone who was in her life. She was ignored, she was neglected, and you took complete advantage of that. She wanted someone to love her, and she will never know what that feels like. Your children deserve more. As much as the defense counsel has raised issues on count 1, all that has done is raise the question of fact for the trial of fact, which means that this will be for a jury or a judge to hear at the 3rd Circuit. I pray for the healing of all the victims and young girls and possibly boys who have come into contact with you. As a community, we should look at this case as a prime example of how much work we have to do when it comes to protecting our children and especially our black girls. I pray for closure and healing for all those who have been traumatized by you. And for you, Jarvis Butts, I wish you a speedy trial and that justice be delivered. Your bind over date is January 16th at 9 o'clock a.m. Anything else for the record?
I'll give you what you're seeking.
Do the right thing and tell us where she's at, please. I'm sorry, Judge. Just do it, Jarvis.
Where is she at, Jarvis?
Just tell us.
Oh, God, no reason.
Judge, I'm sorry. I'm not trying to disrespect your court.
You love to turn off the camera, please. Everybody.
The case highlights the critical need for better support systems for at-risk youth. Advocacy groups are urging policymakers to strengthen child protection services in community outreach programs to prevent similar tragedies in the future. This tragic case serves as a reminder that protecting our children is a shared responsibility. As the community reflects on this incident, there's a growing call to action to ensure that no child feels abandoned or unheard.